Hi there, I'm Alex. I am your instructor for INGH453, Wise Practices in Indigenous Community Health. I want to start by acknowledging that I am joining you from the ancestral and unceded territories of the Wasanich, Songhees, and Esquimalt nations. I'm a visitor here as a fifth generation settler of British and Dutch ancestry, and I was born and raised on the lands of Stalo and Sta'alis nations. And I'm here at UVic, actually in my office at the Center for Indigenous Research and Community-Led Engagement, where I work and have the privilege of working with Dr. Charlotte Lopi, who you may know. She's also in the faculty or in the School of Public Health and Social Policy. And I also completed my BA and MPH in PHSP. So I have a bit of a taste of what you are experiencing as an online student, and I've taken this course myself, and now this is my second time teaching it. And I really enjoy it. I think the content is great and the modality is really applicable, and I hope you enjoy it too. The purpose of this video is to first and foremost put a face to the name and also to acquaint you with the syllabus and course structure and how it's all going to play out on course spaces. So pretty soon here I'm going to switch the screen off of me and I'll put it on my desktop screen so that you can see what I'm referring to as I'm going through the syllabus. I acknowledge that some of you are already enrolled in the BA in Health and Community Services program, so are quite familiar with how the online learning dynamic works. But then also some of you are joining us and taking this course as an elective. So this may be a first time for you with the online modality. And that's perfectly fine. Like I said, I completed 2 degrees as an online student, so at any time feel free to reach out if you have questions or concerns or you're just not sure. I can definitely give you some tips for how to best navigate some of those issues. Um, I can assume that if you've reached this video, you've already navigated to our Course Spaces homepage. So congratulations, that's the first step. But now I'm going to take you through some of the specific features and elements of this course. So you're going to continue to hear my voice, but I'm just going to sneak away by focusing on my desktop. Okay, hopefully that works for you. So as you can see, here we are on Course Spaces. This is us, and right here on the right-hand side, we have the territory acknowledgement, which UVic just recently released, I believe early 2018. So I'm glad that that's a new feature of Course Spaces. So the course title here, but I'm gonna drag us down some contact information to the syllabus. This is set up as a multi-page syllabus, but you can also save it as a PDF. I've provided it there in a more simple format for you underneath as a PDF here. But going back, I'm going to switch to the next page using these arrows in the top right corner. And there's a description of the course. I'm not going to go through this point by point, but really just highlight some of the things that I think you should know. And then the expectation is that you'll read through this in more depth at your own pace. So it's an online course, and the objectives of the course are as follows. You will be able to demonstrate an ability to appreciate the distinctions between Indigenous and Western models of wellness. 2. Uncover and critically analyze colonial settler practices in mainstream healthcare. 3. Recognize and assess wise practices used in Indigenous health promotion. 4. Examine and evaluate wise practices in Indigenous health research. 5. Recognize and interpret the importance of social policy in Indigenous health. And 6. Apply cultural safety and knowledge translation skills to practice. So you can tell based on these objectives that the focus is really on wise practices, particularly in relation to health promotion, research, policies, and knowledge translation. I also want to emphasize that this course is strengths-based and it was specifically designed that way. So we will be celebrating these wise practices. And that's not to say we can't engage in critical analysis, but we do need to be careful that we aren't framing Indigenous health from a deficit perspective that highlights inequities or disparities, especially in the absence of a discussion around colonial contexts. So this deficit model is very common in the literature and discourses, and we're trying to change that, and you'll see that happening in a lot of the recent literature. I'm just going to switch to the next page here. The next page gives you an idea of all of the assignments, and that you'll also be able to see on the main page, I'll click to that there are drop boxes for each assignment. And then with assignment 1, engagement with materials, which is in the form of bi-weekly reading responses, these are drop boxes, which may be different from other courses, online courses you've taken where there is more of a discussion forum, but you can see that it's a Dropbox, and that is intentional on my part. There are a couple issues that come up that I think are unique to this course around the sensitivity or the sensitive nature of some of the materials and the content. So I didn't want to open it up for debate among and between students, but also there have been issues of academic integrity and using other students' materials. And so for simplicity, I chose to go with Dropboxes, but you will see that in Unit 6, I'll go back, rather than a Dropbox, it's going to be a virtual sharing circle. So you can read more about that in the description of the assignments, and that virtual sharing circle will take the form of a discussion forum where you can engage with your peers. This is the late policy that I've created, and it gives you a very detailed explanation of exactly how many points will be deducted for each assignment depending on how many days late it is. The reason there is a late policy is really out of fairness to the students that make an effort to submit their work on time. So it's proportional to the weight of the assignment. You're going to have, anywhere between 1 point, half a point and 1 point taken off for each day late. So if you don't anticipate being able to get your work done on time, if you have a valid medical reason or a family crisis or something that you can inform me ahead of time, feel free to do so. Email me and concessions can be made, or just refer to this late policy to see if it's worth it for you to take that extra time to craft a more refined version of your assignment before submitting it late. Here we have the syllabus at a glance. It's divided into 6 bi-weekly units. It's not a weekly structure, so every 2 weeks you will be submitting a reading response that reflects on the assigned readings and materials. And this is a model that was originally created by Ori and Smith, but it was adapted for this particular course, and it takes all of the core concepts that we will discuss in the biweekly units and brings them together to give you a big picture view of how they relate. So you can see we'll be drawing on Indigenous worldviews and Western worldviews, kind of in a two-eyed seeing approach, which you'll learn about in Unit 1, and that cultural safety is the context and the lens through which we will approach all subjects. And then we're going to be looking at health promotion practice, policy, and research, which work together and inform each other and are sort of brought together through this practice of knowledge translation, all with the focus on wise practices that are going to benefit and strengthen Indigenous communities. I hope that makes sense, but feel free to challenge it, adapt it, or suggest revisions. It's something that this is how I envision the topics coming together. You may see it differently. On this next page, you'll see a more detailed weekly schedule, and this provides for each unit, oh, it shouldn't say weekly schedule, it should say bi-weekly or unit schedule, but you get the point. It provides an overview of the subject, so for instance, Unit 1, Indigenous and Western Models of Wellness, and this is a more foundational unit, as well as Unit 2 on cultural safety, social location, and intersectionality. Before we jump into some examples of wise practices, I think that because some of you will have had previous experience in Indigenous health courses, this is not an introductory course, but at the same time, we need to acknowledge that this may be one person's first introduction to the topic of Indigenous health. So these foundational elements are important. And even myself, having been through several years of taking Indigenous health as the focus of my studies, I find I'm learning new things each time I engage with a certain topic. So I encourage everyone to dive into these materials no matter where you're at in your own learning journey. Um, and feel free to reflect on that too, both in your introductions and in your subsequent reading responses, to talk about how you're engaging with the materials either for the first time or you're very familiar with this subject and it's more of a refresher. There is no textbook for the course. Instead, I have assigned um, journal articles, books, videos that can all be accessed online, either through the course reserves or using the hyperlinks provided in these references. I've provided a link to the course reserves, the library course reserves, that contains all the readings, and that's here on the course homepage, library course reserves. And I do want to emphasize that my preferred communication is direct email. So that can be to my personal email, alexkent@uvic.ca, which is found on the course homepage. There are different ways to contact myself and other students through course spaces, such as through the chat and mail function, but the most direct way is to email me directly here at alexkent@uvic.ca. And I'll just quickly scroll through the Core Spaces homepage here. It may look a little different for you. You can see this is the instructor view, but also I've heard that there will be some revisions for the summer semester. So right now I'm recording it, it's April 20th and we start on May 7th. Who knows what it will look like by then? I may have to re-record this actually. I will also draw your attention to the specific assignments, I think. Assignment 2, Cultural Safety Reflection, is more of a creative assignment. So I really encourage you to submit this in a format other than a traditional academic written paper. And the purpose of that is to honor other ways of knowing and expressing ourselves, which aren't always given space in academia. And the content is based primarily off Unit 2. You're going to identify your own intersectional identity and your sources of privilege, and then start to discuss how you can engage in Indigenous health in a culturally safe way and how you envision your role. Another assignment, or a couple assignments, that I want to draw your attention to I'm giving you an opportunity to provide an outline of your research paper, assignment 4 research paper, midway through the course so that I can provide some formative feedback to you. And I'll get that back to you within a week or so, which will give you 3 weeks to a month to use that feedback to inform the development of your research paper. And I would like to see these outlines done in an APA alphanumeric style, and there are resources here to show you exactly what I mean by that. So you can click here on types of outlines and samples to get an idea of if you haven't done an alphanumeric outline. And finally, the final assignment is a PowerPoint proposal where you'll be proposing a program, research study, or a policy that will be informed by your research paper. And I chose to make the final assignment a PowerPoint proposal because in my own experience, I know how daunting it can be when the end of semester comes and all of a sudden you have 4 20-page papers due. So instead, I'd like to give you an opportunity to implement some of those knowledge translation skills that you'll be gaining throughout the course, particularly in Unit 6, and apply them to a more applicable skill set of developing a proposal that you may actually present to a community or to an organization at one point. So to give you that experience, I think it's really relevant. And I am open to other formats. If you're more comfortable using Prezi or video, that's okay too. I suggested PowerPoint because it seems to be very universal. Um, At this point, I think that's all I'm going to say about the course. I hope some of this information was helpful. I'm absolutely open to emails if you have any questions. You can also use this function here, open forum for questions, because I'm sure if you have a question, others may also have the same one. And then we can just open it up to a conversation. And finally, I will let you know that I've posted a more detailed introduction about myself in Unit 1 Introductions. I really hope that you also take the time to share a bit about yourself, and then we can get to know each other, because I know sometimes this online style can seem a bit impersonal and a little bit isolating. So if we can create a bit of a community over the summer, that would be great. So I look forward to hearing from you and learning from you. And I'm looking forward to a great semester. Bye now.